Well, this is the Dosti that we are looking at on full display. Russian President Vladimir Putin touching down New Delhi last evening, kicking off his crucial two-day state visit to India, as first since the Ukraine war that began in 2022. Now, in this strong diplomatic signal, it was Prime Minister Narendra Modi breaking protocol and personally receiving the Russian leader at the Palam airport. Now, India is calling this visit as a reaffirmation of one of its oldest and most reliable strategic partnership. Now, we'll get you exactly what happens today, as President Putin is expected to receive a ceremonial welcome at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. He will be then paying homage at the Rajghat. And thereafter is when we're looking at today's meetings and collaborations that would be taking place with Prime Minister Modi and President Putin holding delegation-level talks. And he's also expected to address the Indian industry leaders at the FICCI event and will be later hosted by President Draupadi Murmu before flying out. Let's connect with our reporters there. Karishma, Srinjoy and Mohit all continue to be with us. Karishma, as far as when it comes to the hotel where the president is now put up, in some time of now, we are looking at some movement to happen as far as him now, where he will be now making his way. What is being said to the Rashtrapati Bhavan?
Well, yes, absolutely, Amita. President Putin does have a jam-packed day today. He's expected to leave ITC Maurya for a ceremonial welcome at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Then he's expected to visit the Rajghat and then, of course, Hyderabad House, where the majority of the diplomatic talks between the Prime Minister of India and President Putin are going to take place. A joint statement is also expected after that. After that particular meeting and lunch with Prime Minister Modi, he does have some other engagements, like you were pointing out, addressing the industry leaders as well. And after that, he is supposed to be back at the Rashtrapati Bhavan for a banquet that will be held in his honor before he flies out of India back to Russia. And of course, this is going to be a 28-hour visit that has been looked at very, very closely, given how close and deep this relationship is between India and Russia, and how PM Modi, broke the protocol, went to receive him at the airport, traveled in the same car together. Body language experts also reading into the hugs and the handshake that was there at the airport. So there's, of course, a lot to look forward to as President Putin begins his jam-packed day today in New Delhi.
All right, he'll be flying out later there. But as we put off exactly the first in 4 years, this visit has now come across. And as Karishma highlighted, the car pictures or those selfies have been also getting quite popular, as Prime Minister Modi has been receiving world leaders there since the last 25 years itself. This visit is very important because it has now been not just looked upon as a bilateral meeting, but this is going to be a power-packed diplomatic mission coming straight from Moscow. Now, accompanying Putin is a high-powered delegation of Russia's top ministers and officials, right from defense to finance to energy to agriculture, signaling the strategic depth of India-Russia ties. And this is not just about optics. This is about a summit which is loaded with substance as far as when it comes to this entire team that seems to be now accompanying President Putin. But this visit, Srinjoy, it is both symbolic and spectacle as well. The Russian Defense Minister meeting Raksha Mantri Rajghat Singh has highlighted when it comes to the two of the countries there, as Russian defense industry is also ready to support India towards becoming self-reliant in the field of defense production.
Yes, our Defense Minister Belousov is here. And it's very important to note that the Russians have always been very supportive when it comes to defense. Even today, over 50% of all Indian weaponry, whether it's tanks, whether it's guns, whether it's fighter aircraft, whether it's frigates, even submarines, they are all coming from Russia. Some of them have been built here, like the Sukhoi 30 MKI. Has a Russian design, but it's made in Nasik by Hindustan Aeronautics. So at this point, there is a lot of talk about the S-400. India will buy missiles. India will buy 2 more systems. That's already contracted, and the Russians should give it to us in the next year or so. Then there may be talk about 5 more systems. The Su-57 will come up in discussions, but according to my sources, India is going to say that, look here, we haven't taken a decision on the Su-57 fighter. A nuclear submarine has been offered by Russia, and that could well come up. So all these issues are on the agenda. So defense apart, it's a matter of trade. Russia and India are looking at $100 billion of trade. Now it's about 60 plus. It is 60 plus if you keep in mind all the oil India has imported recently. Now oil imports have come down to a trickle. How do you make up for that? What will Russia import? What will Russia export? These are things that are very critical, which is why people like agriculture ministers and other ministers are here. Because if you want to raise trade to the level of 100 billion,
yes,
and Russia and India have been so successful everywhere else in
yes,
defense and space and civil nuclear, they have failed on trade.
And India
now
has been
that
leading,
has
being
to
the
improve.
voice of the global
That
south
is why
there,
you have
as far as
a whole
the two
lot of
countries
ministers.
Are concerned, both are now expecting a new perspective and new relations with business and other, sectors like education and manpower as well. So there are going to be many opportunities, like we're looking at this right from the beginning of the way, because they have India and Russia have many things in common, the relations with the different countries, especially with India. And historically, Russia and India have had many interesting projects before as well, and that continues to happen under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But as President Putin visits India, the spotlight is not just on handshakes and on photo ops. It is on the numbers that actually reflect a growing strategic partnership. Right from this massive spike in oil imports to an ambitious $100 billion trade target by 2030. Now, the India-Russia partnership is now evolving fast, and it is now driven by shared interest and, shifting global equations. Now, this is the diplomacy which is backed by data and by dollars as well. So let's put out exactly how do the trade ties look between India and Russia. As far as when it comes to the estimates that are concerned and how it is now looking as of now, when it comes to the bilateral trade, amounts to nearly 65.7 billion US dollars. And the estimates that are now being talked about to be reached by the year 2030, it is now estimated to reach around 100 billion US dollars. The bigger question when it comes to Russian oil imports, because when the war had not happened, it was around 22.5% that we're looking at. During the war with Ukraine, there has been a jump to 35.8%. And by the end of this year, approximately 20% that we're looking at this projection that is now being estimated. So all of these developments that are now coming at a time as far as this dossier that now seems to be evident, because there is a lot that seems to be happening, and that too after quite some time. And it is picking up with the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Russia, when the two leaders met, and of course the agenda that has now been set in this new environment. We have Priyank also joining in. Priyank, good morning, but let me take a quick question from Mohit, who continues to be with us. Putin's first visit in India, to India in the last 4 years, Mohit, we are likely to see, as far as when it comes to the sales of Russian oil, missile systems, fighter jets, also broadening business links between the two countries beyond energy and also defense equipment.
Yes. Well, yes, in fact, and Amita, as we have been discussing earlier, that trade deficit is something that India would like to work upon with Russia in this particular visit. Now, India would want to reduce the trade deficit. India would want that Russia should open their market for more and more exports and imports, I beg your pardon, and India should be selling pharmaceuticals, automobiles, or the energy sector things to Russia. So that is something that would be a very, very important part of this particular visit of President Putin, and that is why perhaps we see that how various ministers from Putin's cabinet have also arrived. They have met their counterparts here in Delhi, because India would want that, because there is a massive trade deficit between India and Russia that is around $60 billion. And hence India would want that Russia should open their market for India. Russia should import more things from India, because as of now we are importing much from Russia, specifically in the defense sector, in the oil sector, in the energy sector. But India would want to increase their exports when it comes to pharmaceutical sector, automobile sector, in terms of energy sector, and how India could be self-reliant when it comes to defense sector. And perhaps that is why this visit is very, very important, given the fact that how India has given the message to the world that we will take care of our interests by our own. We will not be dictated any terms by anybody. And perhaps that is why Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself went to welcome President Putin. He shared selfies in the car. So that shows the bond only between the two leaders.
Continues to be a very volatile. The whole world is watching. And we believe that in particular interest that would be closely watched is also by the United States of America. That very moment that Prime Minister Narendra Modi decided to walk down the red carpet at Parliament to give the Russian president a warm hug, a big handshake and a grand welcome to India. And this has been signaled as far as India's ties with Russia are concerned, that it is untouched by Western concerns, especially when it comes to amid US and European sanctions. Because this is coming in the backdrop, it seems that US President Donald Trump is walking on a tightrope. And not to forget, on the 23rd of September, US President Donald Trump launched a fresh salvo over the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, calling out China, India and even NATO allies for continuing to purchase Russian oil. Now, Trump seemed to be unhappy about this and went on to say that China, India and NATO allies are funding the war against themselves. As far as President Trump and the positioning that is now concerned, who seems to be pushing India, a friend and an ally, towards Russia even more.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs, which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly.
Well, Priyank, if you can show us, because this may not be the exact good time, weather-wise speaking, for any foreign delegates to visit the country. But on the preparations that have been made on ground to welcome President Putin, we've seen those cultural performances at the airport as well. And I believe traffic advisories that have also been given so that people don't go to those roads, especially or take arterial roads, so that they do not crash or overlap with the route that would be taken up by President Putin.
Yes, Amita, from 9 a.m. to 12 a.m., if anyone in the national capital is attempting to move to a looters Delhi, it's going to be a nightmare for him, because the traffic movements will be restricted at several locations, because Putin has been staying at Sardar Patel Marg when he will be coming to this President House, where he will be given a ceremonial reception. This whole area will be blocked, and then to and fro movement of this VVIP dignitary will be a major issue for the traffic commuters. That's why a traffic advisory has been issued from the Delhi police side to avoid the routes towards Rajghat, to avoid any kind of route, useless movement if someone doesn't have any kind of emergency towards the Luton Delhi zone. And anyone who is moving from Sardar Patel Marg towards the national capital Luton zone should avoid this area, because there will be a massive security restraint which is going to be there from 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. Post that, they can do that, because post that time period.
Well, advisories that have been issued, so it's better for the people there to follow those advisories and to take alternate routes. But this is going to be a big visit, as we continue to highlight as far as the details that are now coming across, as some movement is now expected outside the hotel where President Putin is now staying. So we'll be getting you those live updates on Times Now.